Today on Variant, I give you the evolution of the Ghostbusters, while dressed as a Ghostbuster. Welcome to Variant, where we love comics more than I'm mad that I can't find Hi-C Ecto Cooler at my local grocery store. I'm your host, Arris. Now, even though I love comics and superheroes more than anything, I think it's very apparent that it's not the only thing I love. I'm a fan of all things geekdom, like Dragon Ball Z, One Punch Man, Mortal Kombat, Godzilla, Star Wars, Harry Potter, Transformers, and trust me, the list goes on. And one of the things I loved most growing up was the Ghostbusters. I think I've seen both movies like a billion times, not to mention I was obsessed with the Real Ghostbusters cartoon. I had all the action figures and the wearable toy proton pack that had that yellow foam proton stream. I love that freaking thing. Anyway, since I'm a fan of Ghostbusters and their new movie is coming out this week, it made me want to talk about something I loved so much growing up. Yes, I know a lot of people aren't too excited about their new movie, but it's still Ghostbusters nonetheless. So let's dig inside the evolution of the Ghostbusters. The Ghostbusters all started with the 1984 movie. The movie is a supernatural comedy which was directed by Ivan Reitman and was written by Dan Aykroyd and the late Harold Ramis. For those of you who haven't seen the original Ghostbusters movie, you need to remedy that, like after you're done watching this episode. Anyway, unless you're a die-hard Ghostbuster fan, you probably didn't know that the Ghostbusters were originally called Ghost Smashers. Ghost Smashers was the original script that would eventually become Ghostbusters, and the inspiration was old ghost classics like Abbott and Costello. So Aykroyd ended up writing the script for him and his friend John Belushi. The script was dramatically different from what the Ghostbusters ultimately became. It was about a group of ghost hunters that would travel through space, time, and other dimensions fighting ghosts. And the story began with the Ghost Smashers fighting ghosts right off the bat. The first scene of the film was literally the Ecto-1 leaving the firehouse. After the passing of Belushi, Aykroyd and Ramis rewrote the whole script. Mostly because of Belushi's passing, but also because producer-director Ivan Reitman said the first script was financially impossible. So they rewrote the script to be the Ghostbusters we know and love today, three eccentric parapsychologists who started a ghost-catching business in the Big Apple. The Ghostbusters consisted of Bill Murray as Peter Venkman, Dan Aykroyd as Ray Stantz, Harold Ramis as Egon Spengler, and the team's first recruit Ernie Hudson as Winston Zeddemore. The film also starred Sigourney Weaver as a client of the Ghostbusters, Rick Moranis as her quirky neighbor, and Annie Potts as Janine, the Ghostbusters secretary. In fact, a full synopsis for the movie goes like this. After three scientists lose their jobs at a university in New York City, they decide to become Ghostbusters and catch ghosts, spirits, and poltergeists for money. While doing this, they soon stumble upon a gateway to another dimension, a doorway that will release evil upon the city. So of course, the Ghostbusters have to save New York City from being destroyed by Gozer, the main antagonist of the film. The movie was so successful it got a cartoon series in 1986 which ran until 1991. I was absolutely obsessed with the cartoon as a child, and like I said at the beginning of the episode, I had all the toys. I know, I was an only child. But now that I'm older, you would think I would own the entire series on DVD, but I don't. I need to fix that. One thing a lot of people always wonder is why this series was called Real Ghostbusters and not just Ghostbusters the cartoon or something. Well, the real was added to the series name because of a legal issue with Filmation's Ghostbusters, which was a completely different property altogether. So this forced Columbia Pictures Television to add the real to the name of the show. Just a little fun fact for you. As for the series itself, it basically just continued the paranormal adventures of Peter, Ray, Egon, and Winston. Their secretary Janine was even in the cartoon as well as Slimer. The show also had a bunch of tie-ins and nods to the movie. The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man made several appearances, and during season 3, Walter Peck, the Environmental Protection Agency antagonist from the original film, made an appearance. But the show also changed little things here and there. For instance, the uniforms and containment unit were redesigned, and Slimer was changed from being a bad ghost to a friend and mascot of the team. They explained how this happened in the episode titled Citizen Ghost, which flashes back to what happened to the Ghostbusters right after the movie's events. Gozer is also mentioned a bunch of times throughout the series. Once the series hit season 4 in 1988, it was retitled to Slimer and the Real Ghostbusters. The opening was also redone and now centered around Slimer. Even the animation and overall feel of the show was changed to be less frightening and lighter in tone for a more kid-friendly audience. But let's face it was way better before they lightened up the tone and tried to make it more appealing for younger kids. Plus, the actual Ghostbusters were rarely in the show at this point. With the success of the first movie, cartoon series, and toy line, we finally got a sequel movie in 1989. The original cast returned, and it took place 5 years after the events of the first film. Since then, the Ghostbusters have been hit with lawsuits and court orders, and their business is bankrupt. But as fate would have it, Dana, Sigourney Weaver's character from the first Ghostbusters, begins to have ghost problems once again. So the Ghostbusters come out of retirement apartment only to get themselves arrested. However, they discover that New York City is once again headed for supernatural doom. And of course, they must somehow save the day from Vigo, who's the film's main villain. Now, besides the Ghostbusters themselves, the franchise also brought us two other fan-loved characters, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man and Slimer. I feel like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man and Slimer are just as known or even more known than the Ghostbusters themselves. Especially Slimer, which is why he was a main part of the cartoon series I mentioned a little bit ago. Things for the most part went pretty dark for the Ghostbusters until 1997 when the Extreme Ghostbusters cartoon was released. This series was in continuity with the Real Ghostbusters cartoon, but set years after the end of the Real Ghostbusters due to the lack of supernatural activity which put the Ghostbusters out of business. The members of the Ghostbusters have all gone their separate ways, all except for Egon. He still lives in the firehouse so he can monitor the containment unit and take care of Slimer. He also teaches a class on the paranormal at a local college. Eventually, ghosts start reappearing, so he recruits 4 of his students to be the new Ghostbusters. This show is actually really good, at least I think so. I love the animation and the story is just really good. I also love how it's in continuity with the Real Ghostbusters cartoon. An interesting piece of info is that in some TV listings, the show was called Ghostbusters Dark instead of Extreme Ghostbusters, which is kind of odd. It might be a regional thing, I'm not really sure. Unfortunately, the show didn't last very long, but it's currently available for streaming on Hulu. So if you have a Hulu account, you could watch it in all its ghost-busting glory. The Ghostbusters have also had several comic book series over the years, like the New Ghostbusters, Ghostbusters International, and there's several self-titled books. The two coolest, I think, are Ghostbusters Get Real and the Real Ghostbusters comic. Ghostbusters Get Real has the Ghostbusters meet the Real Ghostbusters to combine forces to battle evil. Even the Extreme Ghostbusters make an appearance in this comic. It's pretty amazing. As for the Real Ghostbusters comic, it's a series from Now Comics that's based on the Real Ghostbusters cartoon. If you love the cartoon series, you'll love the comic. As for video games, they've had a few, like the Real Ghostbusters game, the Extreme Ghostbusters game, but the most fan-loved game is hands down Ghostbusters the video game from 2009. The game is a third-person shooter that takes place during Thanksgiving Day in 1991, 2 years after the events of the second Ghostbusters movie. The Ghostbusters are now official city contractors, and players of the game portray a new recruit hired to test Egon and raise new equipment during a recent rise in paranormal activity. The game was received really well by fans of the Ghostbuster franchise, especially since the actors who portrayed the Ghostbusters in the film lent their voices to their respective characters in the game. Many fans consider this game to be the true third Ghostbusters movie, especially since the script for the game was a repurposed Ghostbuster movie script called Ghostbusters 3 Hellbent. And real quick, Ray from the Ghostbusters made a cameo in the Casper movie. I always thought that was really cool when I was a kid. Actually, I still think it's really cool. But that, my friends, brings us all the way to the newest installment of the Ghostbusters franchise, the 2016 Ghostbusters film that features a whole new team of female Ghostbusters. I don't have much to say about the movie because at the time of me shooting this video, I haven't seen the movie yet. As I mentioned before, I know there's been a lot of skepticism about the new movie, but I think it could be fun. I'm pretty excited to see what they do with it. Either way, I'll be seeing it tomorrow and give you guys my review on Saturday. But just like that, you now know the evolution of the Ghostbusters. I'm sure I left out little things here and there, but I covered all the major points of the franchise's history. Hold on one second. This is Arris. I'm ready to believe you. Really? 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 I'll be right there. I gotta take care of something. Roll sponsor. Lynda.com is an online learning company with more than 77,000 video tutorials that teach software, creative, and business skills. Memberships start at $25 per month and provides an unlimited 24/7 access to top quality video courses taught by expert instructors with real-world experience. Learn anytime, anywhere, and at your own pace, from bite-sized tutorials to comprehensive courses in web design, programming design, photography, business, audio and video, 3D, and animation. And you can learn on the go with their optimized mobile site or free iPhone and iPad app for members. Try Lynda.com for free for 7 days by visiting lynda.com/variants and get some knowledge into your brain. That didn't go as planned at all. I don't want to get into details, but I think my Ghostbusting days might be over. Yeah, let's go to the buy list. First up for Wednesday, July 13th, we have Nightwing Rebirth Issue 1. He's been Robin, Batman, a spy, and a ghost. but now Dick Grayson returns to Gotham City to reclaim the life that was taken from him. Finally, we have Hal Jordan in the Green Lantern Corps Rebirth 1. In the absence of the Green Lantern Corps, Sinestro and his fear-inducing Yellow Lantern Corps patrol the universe as its sole protectors. But deep in space, a green light still burns. And that brings another episode of Variant to a close. But remember, we're headed to San Diego Comic-Con next week, so be sure to check out our Facebook, our Twitter, and Instagram to keep up with all the Comic-Con news. But with that said, remember you can always follow us on our Variant Facebook page to keep up with the show and all things comic related. You could also follow Variant on Twitter at Variant Comics or me on Twitter at Arris_Quinones. But I'll see you lovely faces next week when I talk about all things comics. It's currently available? During season 3, Walter Peck, the Environmental Protection Agency, my nose, woo! Man, it like aggravated me. Like a bee went in there. Oh man, that's on tape.